Welcome to the BigBusinessZoo.com speaker series on how to increase your sales, network, and site rank. This series features video segments that highlight powerful ways to leverage digital assets such as video, podcasts, blogging, mobile apps, and other digital tools. With today's special guest, Linda Feinholz. When business owners find themselves struggling or if they want a substantial boost, they call Linda. She is an author, consultant to entrepreneurs, and an advisor to Fortune 100 and 500 companies that include such names as Avon, Disney, and Mattel. Linda's latest book, The Success Guide for Entrepreneurs and Business Owners, is all about getting through the obstacles that can hold a company back from greater profitability. Linda is also the founder of the Breakthrough Academy at www.breakthroughbydesign.com. Get ready to hear Linda talk about what it takes to really develop a business, get unstuck, and get a business on track. She will also include ways you can most effectively apply podcasting to get results that translate into more internet traffic, and especially how to get more results that translate to your bottom line. This one's loaded with lots of takeaways and will surely help you to increase your sales, your network, and your site rank. And now, here is your host, a profitability strategist, marketing maven, as well as our beloved zookeeper, Catherine B. Trainer.
We are here today with Linda Feinholz. Linda, welcome to the Big Business Zoo. And we've already covered your short bio, and your big bio is going to be on the page. And I want to just get right into our original questions and what's exciting you and what's happening, and sharing your expertise. And let's go.
Very cool.
What excites you the most about your specialty? And your specialty is business development and growth.
Exactly. My business is my specialty is helping entrepreneurs, business owners, experts take what they know, what they love doing, and unleash it. Just unleashing that potential into the world through business. Look, when we get out of bed on the average Tuesday morning, and I say Tuesday because here in America we've got plenty of Monday holidays or people taking long weekends, but in general, our Tuesday is devoted to business. Weekday daylight hours, we're focusing on business. And so I'm really passionate about helping people figure out how to take who they are and make really lucrative businesses so that, number one, they enjoy the time and investment they're spending in their business, but also because that unleashes what they can do with the rest of their life, the causes that are important to them, how they spend their time with friends, with family, creating that multiplier effect in life. And so what excites me in particular is what technology is enabling nowadays. And there's so much going on that at a certain point it can become overwhelming. So part of what I do with my students, my clients, is calm the waters, calm everything back to what's your vision for what it is you want as your life and the role the business is playing in accomplishing that. And from there we can then say, good, now what makes sense? What's the right business model? What use of technology? We're using technology in so many aspects of life, but how do we bring it back to what's highest and best use of our time right now in business and how to leverage it? So
the sequencing is definitely important.
Very much.
And targeting what's going to be the most productive, profitable thing that you can do.
Right.
That's going to fit in with what you're great at, and not just modeling after somebody else. And they're doing this and this and this. There's a certain sweet spot, I call it, that there's little pockets in each business opportunity. That if you can focus on that and not just get busy with all the other things, you're going to get the top results.
Yeah, the most interesting thing I find happening is that when people are overwhelmed and feeling completely swamped, there's a couple of questions that I ask them, and you can see the light go off. So one of the questions, if I'm working with a business owner and their entire team and everybody's at 6s and 7s and everybody's busy, but they can't describe the profitability they're getting from all of that time and effort, is one of the questions I ask is, what is it you're trying to solve? And it sounds very mundane, but what happens is we get so busy we don't even remember what the starting point was And so with a business, the starting point is what's your vision and what are your concrete measurable goals? And I don't care if we're talking 5-year, 3-year, 1 year, or 3 months. Why are we spending our time, our intentions, putting our activities together, pulling resources together? What's the objective? What's the end point? What's the purpose behind this activity? And even just getting people to sit for 5 minutes and reconsider the answer to that question hits the pause button, stops all the activity, and lets them get back to being centered. So now we can open not the floodgates, but open the deliberate steps for how do we help you build a business that you love, that isn't overwhelming, because it doesn't have to be. We're actually allowed to create businesses that are both lucrative and really easy and fun. Who knew?
I agree. That's why I named mine was Zoo, and I moved to the woods.
Exactly.
And I said, if you want me to leave, it'll take a stick of dynamite and a big check.
Yeah, exactly.
But do I focus on what problems do I solve? Absolutely. And am I excellent at that? Absolutely. Because I want to create value, and I don't want to, torture people by giving them the idea that I'm going to be able to help when I'm not.
Yeah.
Or torture myself by struggling to master things that aren't even relevant or that are going to be gone in 6 months.
And you just brought up a really key issue that when the economy gets tough, I think people slide into a scarcity mentality, and what they lose track of is the following. If you will stay on point of knowing who you are, what your gifts are, what your experience enables you to help do in the world, help people solve, if you will stay right there, then you're going to have plenty of conversations with people that you aren't the solution for, but now you can build a relationship and actually build a relationship as a trusted advisor, because you know plenty of people who may be the perfect solution for them. And if you'll stay in relationship with them, you become core and central to them and their thinking about who they are, what they're trying to create. You may or may not be the perfect solution for everyone. So would you like to have a relationship with a large pool of people? Because the book that Malcolm Gladwell wrote about the tipping point was all about this notion that there are people who are connectors, and in many ways they're the most valuable relationship to have and the most valuable person to be in relationship with others is to be a connector where people turn to you first.
Yeah.
That means the people who you may not be the perfect solution to, they've got a giant Rolodex of relationships, and when someone raises a question about something you are an expert at, you're top of mind because of the relationship that you're building.
Right, and that's something with me. I'm becoming more visible.
Yeah.
But before this, I've got relationships with people that are very high levels of business and visibility that they call me and ask things, right. Or they call me when it's the heart stuff. Oh my gosh, this is happening, or when they're going to try something new and they say, well, I'm thinking of branching out into this area. What do you think?
Yeah, there's so many ways to be a resource and be your gifts in the world. And when I look at what technology is doing, what technology has done is broaden all the ways to be found to be in relationship. It still comes back to the centrality of being in relationship. I have my Breakthrough Academy students, one of the conversations I have with them is sometimes you have to step out of the busyness, step out of the technology, and pretend you're back in ancient Rome. And you're living in Rome and you're going to the Forum. What was in the Forum? The Forum was where the public buildings were, the temples were, the bathhouses were, and the steps were going into all those buildings with everybody coming and going, half hearing each other's conversations, stopping on a bench to talk with someone and so on. You knew where to come, that marketplace, that forum, to come be in relationship with people. Technology is enabling us to have lots of forums to go play in, and it's also flooding us with information moving so fast with so many people that part of what we have to do, it's our responsibility, is to figure out how do I really define who I want to be in relationship with and through what fewer channels rather than trying to be in all of them simultaneously. It's simply not possible. It's not possible.
No, and you can have a little footprint places, but as far as really connecting, and that you're gonna, and I think everybody has their own flavor too, Linda. There's some people, they are LinkedIn all the way because they're more buttoned up, they're more corporate, they have more of a linear thing, and for them that just fits. And then other people feel very uncomfortable on LinkedIn, but they feel more comfortable on Facebook. And then there's other people, they are just the speed, they're like the road runner. They want Twitter. They want Twitter like you can't believe.
Yeah.
And they love the speed, and they love the pace, and they love the exchange, and then if I use Twitter as a search tool, not as a because if I get on there, if there are so many rabbit trails for me, it's a danger zone.
Yeah.
It's too distracting.
Yeah, and if you look at Google Plus, the Google Plus platform now, what distinguishes it is that if you can find people who are influencers on topics or find people with a shared interest, it's not the same feeling as you have in Twitter with one-liners going by, or Facebook where you have hundreds of people flying by. In Google Plus, you let it know where you want to start, and you can keep shaping what level of person or community or view you want at this moment. And the conversations are much more about threaded conversations. So whether you're in a community or you're outside a community, you start to see the community in the conversation. So again, it's another different feel to it.
That's interesting, because when I joined Google Plus, it was really early, because I tried to get right in on things early and find out what's up. And the active community early on was photographers. And I didn't know any. I mean, I'm a point and shoot. I did have a digital camera, but I'm not by any means a master photographer. But I have a background in art, and the way that they see things, they see designs, they see patterns, they see beauty, they bring a window of a moment.
Yeah.
They're really, really great photographers. And so it was this festival of all these fantastic photographers. And no, this did not build my business per se, but it built me.
Right. Same.
And my my understanding of that, and expanded my vision. And then now, if I want to recommend photographers, I know some photographers.
Yeah.
But
and again, it's the network effect.
Yep, exactly.
And so part of the value, whether you're in the Roman Forum where you've got to put on your toga and your sandals and go stroll down and figure out who's around, it's the same thing in each of these different forums of figuring out, are you going to have the most effective conversation on the steps to one of the temples, or sitting on a bench in the bathhouse, or in one of the pools in the bathhouse, and figure out where folks who are like-minded want to come join you in conversation, come find out more about who you are, what you do, and create that engagement, and so on. So it's, back to your original question about what's exciting. To me, what's exciting is a lot of options with the same understanding that you cannot do it all. So you have to kind of do the sample platter of spending time in each to figure out, is there one that's more natural to you, your rhythm, your way of connecting? If you can describe, for instance, as a business person, what your ideal customer is doing with their time, where they're likely to be going and looking, so that you can be in front of them to start being found and start the relationship with them, that's the ideal for this use of technology.
Right. So, Linda, the reason that we have you in this series is because you have so much experience with podcasting. And podcasting is actually both social media, and it's an information creating and content creation resource. And one thing that people often don't know about podcasting is that that's your high demographic. If you're looking for business movers, shakers, decision makers, upper income, they love podcasts. Right. And they love them because they can multitask, and they can listen to it while they're exercising, or whether if they do any house cleaning or things like that, or if they have a commute, especially people that have to drive, they they download those podcasts and they listen to them on a weekly. Like I have certain podcasts. It's a religious thing. I mean, every Sunday I have this little block of time that I catch up on these podcasts because these are thought leaders. They're people that are creating high quality content, and they're exposing me because they have different guests come on or they have panel discussions to a perspective on things that I wouldn't get. And it's current. It's fresh. It's current, and it is much more current than waiting for somebody to put a book out.
Right, there's a couple of things I think are really useful for the folks who are with us to understand. When we talk about podcast, understand it from this perspective. A podcast is a pre-recording. It is not a two-way conversation. So whoever's crafting the podcast needs to make it engaging. And as you shared a moment ago, part of what's known from all the statistics, all the demographic research, is that if you're trying to reach someone with a higher level of education and a higher level income, that's who's hanging out in the podcast world. Part of it is, as you said, because you can download it, listen to it at your leisure. There's another reason, and this is really critical to understand. In internet land, if I go to a website and I'm interested in what's happening on the website and I want to get more in the future, very often the way to connect with that blogger, the owner of the website, is to opt in order to get emailed or to get access to information. But a podcast, you can subscribe without giving any of your information in return. And people who are higher income, higher educated, extremely busy, don't want to be in other people's lists until they decide they want to be in someone else's list. And so what happens with a podcast is, by creating an interesting topic and engaging content, that person who is subscribed to your podcast becomes devoted to getting information from you. And funny thing, when we talk about building relationships start because someone finds you valuable for your personality, for your information, for your access, and so on. And so this notion of a podcasts come in a lot of forms. They can be an hour-long radio show. They can be a half-hour Google Hangout that's pre-recorded. It can be an audio podcast that's an interview in pure audio form or video form that's put out through broadcasting mechanisms like an iTunes, a Stitcher, or the many other podcasting services. So podcast is a shorthand term for getting pre-recorded content because you've subscribed, and you do not have to share any of your information until you want to add yourself back into relationship with the person who's putting that content available to you.
It's also a level above what, people think, well, podcast, that's a recorded thing. Mm-hmm. It's not just a recording. You can have images, because when people listen to your podcast on their smartphone or on like iPod Touch, they see that there's a cover picture. You can put hyperlinks. You can divide it into chapters.
It's all gotten very sophisticated.
Actions. You can send them to a link to get a free resource. There's a lot of opportunity for you when you create the podcast to embed information and more things in there. Like today, we're going to be turning this into a podcast, and you mentioned Malcolm Gladwell's Tipping Point. Mm-hmm. We're going to put a link to that in our worksheet that people can download when they watch the video, and we'll also put a link in the podcast because that's an important book, an important share, an important idea.
Right. So think about how this in turn becomes interwoven. That this one piece of content now in turn links to many other resources. So for someone who subscribes to your podcast, depending on the format that you set it up in, how they can make it available to themselves, how they can access those links. Again, I'll come back to the tipping point, because everything you just described is the perfect example of that. So someone who is subscribed to this podcast now knows, not only have I verbally mentioned Malcolm, referred to the book, but because of the way you structure your podcast setup, they know there will be a link they can get to rapidly. Obviously they could go to Amazon.com and type it all in, but you become this tipping point central resource. It's enormous, the value that this is. why am I excited about technology? Because look at what you could do with technology.
Well, and do you have to be talking to people 24 hours a day? It also goes back to what we talked to at the beginning. For your lifestyle, you can create a high-value resource like a podcast, get a following on that, and you really don't, that leverages 24/7 globally.
Right, because it's leveraging what's convenient in other people's lives.
Right, and that is the way that it is now. People do not want to be push marketed, and they want to get it, and especially busy people, the decision makers, they value their time, they value their eyeballs, and you've got to keep it high quality. Right. That's one of the things that I learned from you was you put as a priority, because you told me what format you were using, and I don't know that we'll discuss that in this, because I'm happy at a high level to take it back to what you and I talked about, which is you need to know what your strategy is and how it's serving in your business. So for instance, I am a co-host of a radio show that's on one platform. It's an hour long, and the format is we go find experts who are either entrepreneurs who will literally peel back the onion layers and share what they learned through building their business, what their ahas were, what the breakthrough moments were, what it is they had to master in order to run their business well, whether it was teams, systems, their profit model, and so on. So that's one form of conversation that we have on this hour-long podcast. The other is we bring in people who are advisors to businesses. They may be technical experts and so on. And again, we spend an hour in great conversation and mention the program so that if our listeners want to go get more information because it's relevant to them, their lives, their business, they know where to go for it. So that's one form of a podcast, and that runs every week, and it's redistributed and so on. And then I have my own private 9-minute podcast that I do weekly. And that's a free podcast. That's Breakthrough by Design podcast. That's out there. And then I have the version of the podcast, which is 9 minutes every day, that the members of the Breakthrough Gold program get. So content can be used in so many fashions. You need to know the strategic reason why you're using it and why you're creating these podcasts. And you can also plan and batch out that you don't have to sit down for 9 minutes every day. You can plan that out and preload that.
Right. I cannot do it. You put your finger on a really specifically important tactical issue. I personally cannot sit down, turn on a recorder, and speak for 9 minutes. I happen to work best from scripts, from frameworks, and so on, number one. Number two, I work really effectively if I'm interviewing someone and I'm posing a series of questions. I now have the option. That could be an hour-long podcast, or that could be edited to be several shorter podcasts that each section can have its own topic, and now it can be repurposed for where that content is showing up and so on. I happen to work in batches, so I will literally create a couple of hours where my focus is entirely on that, and then I move on to other things.
Right, and then editing time and things like that are separate, or that is something that you can delegate.
Exactly. I can do it myself while watching television in the evening, or I can send it to staff, etc. There's a lot of different ways to do it. And again, we're back to technology. Technology is making it incredibly easy to do a recording, bring it into the right software, do whatever editing, append whatever intros, outros you want to. If it's video, adding the overlays with links and calls to action or invitations. It's amazing.
Yeah, you've been around a while like me, so isn't it amazing?
It's amazing.
I remember when 1982 or something, and I was in college, and I used the word processor on a computer, and I didn't have to retype everything. Yeah. It came out spelled right and formatted right, and it was 23 pages of a miracle. Exactly. And ever since then, I've just been amazed. And now the things we can do, it's just incredible.
It is. It really is. And I think the challenge for each person who's trying to figure out how to get themselves found, get themselves known, get themselves liked and trusted, and build a following and build relationships and build strategic alliances is you have to be able, you can get completely lost because of how available technology and everything you can do through technology is nowadays. I was at a very large gathering of women in technology, and one of the women stood up and explained that she had worked for years and years before she changed direction at age 25. And I wanted to laugh. I mean, the fact that somebody thinks that from when she graduated college to age 25 was years and years is, you know, things are moving so fast and there's so much available, and the challenge is to learn to not dive in and be subsumed and drown in it, but be able to keep pulling back and saying, what's the purpose of how I'm spending my time? What's the purpose of this activity I'm doing, whether it's marketing or it's how I'm building my business or it's a system I'm putting in place in my business or a relationship that I'm building? What's the purpose behind it? Because that's what lets you then look at all the options of technology and say, is that actually the highest and best use of my time and my attention? Is it getting me closer to my goal in an effective way? Or am I just going to end up chasing squirrels because there's, you know, the next moving object or the next bright, shiny object, and, you know, the next thing is Pinterest and the next thing is Instagram and everything else? It's like, do I know yet if I'm going to give a little bit of my time on a daily basis or a weekly basis to test out for a while how that's serving me, my business, what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to create in my presence and my business in the world? Or is it another bright, shiny object that's in fact distracting me because technology's gotten so easy?
Right, and that's the other thing too. I think that people get deceived by the ability, because you can fill your entire day and be very busy doing lots and lots of things that are not revenue producing, that
Yes.
are not value producing, that are not content producing, that are not leading to any decisions or call to actions or anything that's going to grow your business bottom line.
Yeah.
And I compare it to, I've got some people that I struggle with locally, and they are very, very busy, and they talk about how busy they are, and they're trying to do this thing, and I tell them, you know, what I'm doing and versus what they're doing, because I have a strategy and a plan and a model, and a goal is like the difference between playing with crayons and crepe paper and paste and building a building with boards and rebar and you know, a deep foundation. I want to be busy building something that will last. I want to be busy building something that has staying value and not just glorify being busy.
Right. There's an interesting cycle that's happened the last few years. So there was a really interesting study that was done a number of years ago that was talking about what happens with email. And they literally calculated that every email that you looked at and threw in the trash, not took action on, used 4 minutes of your time and attention. And those of us who are building businesses, part of what happens is because of all the connections we're crafting with others and the conversations we're in, get a lot of email. And not all of it's junk email. It's simply a high volume of email. And if you think about opening an email to look at the subject line, look at the topic, decide if I'm coming back to it later, decide if I'm answering it now, or decide if I'm putting it in the trash. Okay, it's by choice. So it's a huge amount of time because it takes the person sending it so little time to send, but it's 4 minutes. We'll just use the number for the moment, 4 minutes per email on your time. If you're getting 100 emails a day times 4 minutes, it's insincere to say, I can handle email in 15 minutes. Now, what a lot of people have done is they said, I don't deal with email anymore. Nobody has my email address. Only 10 or my top 20 clients have my email, and personal and family. Everything else is on Facebook and so on. Okay, how many times in the past several years have I heard people say, just go onto Facebook for 15 minutes a day? I'm sorry, but it's unreal and it's untrue to believe you go onto Facebook for 15 minutes. If you started a stopwatch and started at the top of your Facebook feed and started scrolling till you found ones you wanted to respond to, and you look down at your watch, you're probably at the 10-minute mark. If you find ones you want to respond to and add comments and look down at your watch, you're at the half-hour mark. If it reminds you of a few people you haven't seen for a while and you want to go find them, see what they're doing, you flip to their profile, go back through their stuff and comment, you're at the hour mark. And it's not that it's wasted time, but you have to own your time and be really cognizant. Is this getting me to my goals? And if not, how do I compartmentalize my time? So if building a podcast to put out there because it's content that's part of my marketing, that's building relationships, that's inviting people back to my site where they're going to engage with the material, the videos, the other links to podcasts, the articles and such that I have on my site. It's an entire marketing activity. And we forget because we get lost in the waves by being in the technology that there was actually a purposefulness of it. We used to go to work for 40 hours a week. And we had conversations with our colleagues and our coworkers. But guess what we didn't do? We didn't get on the phone while we were at work and talk to 30 other people during that day. We maybe called 1 or 2 people during lunchtime, or we called someone right as we were, oh, I'm leaving the office, I'll be there in 20 minutes. That was it. You actually went and focused on work. Even complicated work, even work that was filled with lots of motion in and out of other people's offices and conversations and so on. But you were actually focused, highest level thinking on accomplishing the business of your business. And so while technology's gotten easier, what it's also become is this giant distraction vehicle that makes it so easy to forget, what was my purpose? What did I declare I was going to get done today through technology? Through, the purpose of my podcast isn't just because I'm in the mood to put stuff out there. It's serving a purpose of creating engagement with hopefully my ideal customer, my ideal strategic ally, and so on for business building purposes. By the way, when I win the lottery, I might have a different purpose behind my podcast. But for right now, it's all about building the business that I am developing because it allows me to create the life I really love.
And high performance people will invest time in training and coaching and accountability where you're working with people that they'll call you on it. Are you really following through with high value activities?
Right.
And they're also blocking time. You have to block time that it's a priority to create content. It's a priority to communicate. It's a priority to do this and this and this. It's going to lead to a revenue stream because it so is. And I love the fact that you brought up time blocking because there's so much material that's been out there for decades now about time management. And I will have people come to me and say, I need to learn productivity techniques and time management. And I ask them to hit the pause button and sit back and again go back to what is it you're trying to create? Start with true north. What's my vision and what are my goals? And now the question is, if you owned your time, how would you use it? How would you use it? Now we can talk about the techniques of time blocking and other mechanisms and how you sort email and how you literally declare appointments with yourself where you don't answer the phone and you don't answer email because it's a working meeting with yourself to get something accomplished, honoring it the same way you would have a working meeting with a client or a working meeting with your team members. How do you own your time so that you're owning your attention, you're directing your attention for the highest payoff use during that particular portion of your day? And you have to start with having a clear goal of what results do you want to accomplish overall with your business. Is it whether it's an income goal or a span goal or a growth and connection goal?
Exactly.
And I go back to that Pareto principle. What are the 20% of things I can do that are going to give me 80%? And I'm brutal when it comes to figuring out what I'm going to do today. As I'm thinking through that, okay, is this a 20% thing? And if it's not, then I'm not going to stack it to where that's going to be the first priority.
There's a really interesting phenomenon of everybody wanting to go straight into action, and the irony is one of the things that was learned many years ago in the world of computer design and technology and programming and so on is that, in a sense, you spend 80% of your time designing, and then you're really efficient in the execution, that other 20%. So that's one way that 80-20 rule comes really effectively into play. There's another side to it, which is that people are so used to multitasking now and just leaping into their next activity. But the irony is, if you want to use less time, get a higher level result, and do it easier, if you would spend 5 minutes before you go into an activity, into a meeting, into a phone call, into creating, literally setting up the things you're going to use for a podcast, before sitting down to do copywriting, before, I could go on and on with, checking the revenues that have come in and how's your cart working. We're all on technology today. But the reality is, if you'll spend 5 minutes of prep and then keep yourself focused, you get stuff accomplished in as much as 20% of the time you thought it was going to take. I have people come back to me and say, I set aside 2 hours, and at the 20-minute mark I was done. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because you literally centered your time and attention, were as intentional with what you're working on today as you were in designing what's true north for your business overall. What's true north for how I'm going to use my time right now? It's what's the activity I'm going to work on. So what are the things I need to complete and get out of my attention? How am I setting up my attention and my tools and my resources, or the people I'm bringing into this particular meeting or working session? And it's a single agenda working session, so that we're staying focused on accomplishing and moving forward as far as we can on this one particular task. So, some stuff that makes us really powerful in business has nothing to do with technology. Technology is a tool that enables us now, for instance, to work remotely really effectively.
And depending on who you want to work with, if you want to work with high-performance, high-value people, it shows so much respect for their time. Like, we're doing this interview, and I'm so thankful that you're here doing this with me.
My pleasure.
I'm respectful of your time. I'm respectful of your interest. I'm respectful of your expertise. And we've set this up to be, somewhat informal, but I'm also thinking always about who's going to listen to it, and are these going to be the kind of questions and the kind of things that we talk about that are going to add value and that are going to be not something temporary, a temporary solution, like how, the technical, how to do a podcast and all the detailed setups, because those are not timeless. If they can master the importance of prioritizing the thought that goes into it, and choosing a good channel, and creating high quality content, and then designing the format and the structure and the guests in a way that's going to create the highest value and the most connection power for who your target market is and who your target audience is, that's much more valuable to them than some kind of technical tutorial.
Right,
and that's why I'm so glad that you're talking about this.
Oh, and it's my pleasure too, because I think about this all the time. I think about it on my own behalf. I think about it on behalf of the students in the Breakthrough Academy. I think about it in the one-on-one clients I'm working with. This notion of highest and best use of time, and also what is it that creates the best connection? And again, as you said, with who's your ideal customer. So, for instance, I love Malcolm Gladwell. I love how he thinks. I love his material. I actually had the opportunity to see him interviewed in person a couple of weeks ago, and I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to connect with him and see if I can get him on one of the podcasts. And the truth is, he's not available. You cannot approach him. He has an entourage that helps him move from one place to the next, so he gets through his day and gets it accomplished. But moreover, if you want to get to him to do an interview, you don't get to Malcolm Gladwell. You get to the publisher of his books, who has a publicist there who handles it, and they have certain terms and constraints around how he uses his time and where he does interviews and so on. And I bring it up as a way of sharing an idea to think about, which is, of course, I'd love to have a one-on-one conversation with Malcolm Gladwell, but here's the irony. He's interviewed all over the place. I can go find an interview he's done with someone else where I think it's a great interview and provide that content on my website and then speak about something he taught that was valuable to me in the podcast, where I'm literally taking his information and I'm now adding a layer of context and meaning and perception to the people who like the way I think. And that's why they're subscribed to my podcast. They're not subscribed to my podcast to hear me interview Malcolm Gladwell. There's plenty of ways they can hear Malcolm. They're subscribed to me because there's something that I, Linda Feinholz, do differently than others that resonates for them, that they like, that they want it to be a part of their life, a part of their thinking. And every one of us needs to take that opportunity to step back and distinguish between what sounds fabulous, but what actually serves best in building the business we're trying to build. And I'm trying to build a business where my expertise is used with business owners, entrepreneurs, experts who like the way I think and see that the way I think will help them build their business further, faster, and easier. And as long as I hold that as my anchor point for everything I'm doing in my business, I know that I'm working with people who understand that match between how I think, how I teach, how I work with people, and who they're looking for to help them. And that's the same invitation for each of us, whether we're using podcasts, where we're using written media, we're standing networking, we're speaking from the stage. These are just different venues for relationship building.
And that makes a difference. And if you look at, the research level and the experience level, that Malcolm, he's one of those top researchers that will, do a lot more than what normal people would do, and that's high. He creates high value, seminal quality work, and they are absolutely brilliant, and that's important that they gauge his time and meter that, or he wouldn't have the energy or the time to do more work.
Right, and here's the irony. I like diving in to the depths of, and we'll keep using Malcolm as an example, I love diving into the depths of how he thinks and how he comes to his ideas and so on. And in many ways, I'm an alchemist. I love collecting lots of information, having it available to me, and then when I'm in conversation or doing my work with my students and my clients, summarizing it down to a small idea, because that's very often exactly what they want to hear. That's the level of new idea they want added in to what they're thinking on. They don't necessarily want to go spend 20 hours diving into the depths of a particular expert's background, way of thinking, models, all, they're perfectly loving that I will contextualize something into a new framework. I can explain it in 3 sentences and then spend the next 3 minutes explaining how they can use it in practical terms in their business, and they go, check, that's why I'm working with Linda. It's right there. Perfect idea attached to something I'm trying to solve.
Can you go over just briefly what you do at breakthroughbydesign.com?
Oh, sure. I'd be pleased to. So breakthroughbydesign.com is the home of the Breakthrough Academy, where what I've done is I've put together a series of programs that entrepreneurs can avail themselves of. So the people who come to that site are people who are looking for, how can I make my business grow, but do it without the growing pains? Is there an easier, is there a faster, is there another way than what I currently know how to think about in my business, how to construct and form how I'm doing business? So for instance, we've talked a bit today about visioning and goal setting. To me, that is the starting point for every business. You've got to know, why am I getting out of bed on Tuesday, in order to feel enthusiasm about it. And so the first of these 5 core systems that I deal with at Breakthrough by Design is the vision and goal setting. Once you can describe your vision, then next we shape your profit model so that we're taking your expertise, matching it to the needs of your ideal customer, and doing it in a way that's highly lucrative so that you can keep reinforcing and growing your business and also be who you want to be in the rest of your life with your friends, with your family, with your community, and so on. When you've described the profit model you want to use, now we can talk about, so what are the systems that need to be in place so that that's done with excellence, whether I'm doing it, another member of my team is doing it, so that my clients know they're getting excellence from us as an organization, as a business. And once you've defined systems, now is when it's the right time to ask, so who do I want on board? Who should the members of the team be that are living this system, helping design the system, put it in place in order to accomplish the profit model, in order to achieve the vision? And dead center of all of it is you. You as the leader, as the manager of your business. What is the new mindset for you to cultivate? Are there new tools? Are there new skills for you to cultivate to be an even more competent, confident builder of your business, a leader, a manager of everything going on in your business? Because you are the anchor point of your business. So that's what the Breakthrough Academy and Breakthrough by Design is all about. And we have programs that are workshops. We have the year-long invitation-only Academy program itself. And so it's all information for the small business owner, the entrepreneur, the expert who wants to grow a business. And that's the key. It's being business-minded about taking your expertise into the world and creating a really fabulous business and life.
And that's something, too. You've got the whole enchilada with the beans and the rice and everything. But you also, people can start with listening to your podcast.
You can start with listening to the podcast. You can join the Gold program, which is a $20 a month program where you get the daily podcast and you get a weekly. I work every week on a webinar setting with one volunteer where we look at what's going on in their business and look at it from the perspective of what's happening with these 5 systems and what are the next steps for you, and create community and all kinds of tools and exercises for people to start taking into their business and get a taste of what is it that this material is all about and how they can apply it immediately in their business and in their life. Right,
and that's one thing I would encourage people. You all know that I'm having these experts on these series. She's top shelf, and do take the time to check out her website and her programs, because even a little Linda, I think, is going to give you a lot of insight, a lot of high quality help, because she's absolutely dedicated to excellence, and she's got the pedigree and the track record to produce it, plus a wonderful person.
Thanks.
So let's wrap this up with looking into the future a little bit. Remember the prognosticator cap Johnny Carson had?
Oh yeah.
Put on your prognosticator cap, and what do you see coming up in the next year that you think will be the best way for people to expand or leverage, or any new tools or strategies?
Yeah, I think one of the keys is for people to start really understanding Google and Google+. There are a number of things that when people talk about Google, they filter it. And so you'll hear people say, well, Google bought YouTube. One of the most recent changes that Google just made is if you want to leave comments on someone's video on YouTube, you actually must sign in with a Gmail address, email address. Now think about what this means as not your business, but their business. They've found a way to make sure that everyone that wants to comment becomes a member of the Gmail Google community. It's worth doing if you don't already have a Gmail address. It doesn't mean you have to drive all of your connections and all of your email through it, but it's worth signing up so that you now go spend time on Google Plus and really start understanding how you can do a one-year plan for what's on this platform that would help you build your business. There's communities there. You can create your own communities. You can join other communities. There's Hangouts. There's all these different tools that Google has built into a giant platform, and there's so many different ways to use it to build businesses. I'll talk about Hangouts for just a moment. A Hangout, when it's live, can be highly interactive. It can be either just performance, or it can be literally conversations engaged in community. They can be done privately, or they can be done publicly. They can be broadcast and recorded and become long-term recordings on YouTube. So let's think about it for a moment as a business owner. How might you deliberately use Hangouts to engage with a subset of your client base, record that information, turn it into frequently asked questions, Q&A answers that are then permanently stored on YouTube, that are then linked to your website and or are packaged behind an opt-in shield so that you can build your connection with people and reward them by giving them a 5-part mini course. Think about this device that Google and all of its tools might be for you, for building your business, creating content, creating engagement. I think there's a tremendous opportunity in this coming year, if you'll take it, to just carve out an hour or two a week to start getting familiar and playing with these different tools and figure out how you integrate them into your business, to your presence online, to the content you're providing for your customers. I think it's a huge opportunity for people.
And what we're doing with these videos is we're making them into podcasts too. We're using the Google Hangout, we're doing the video, putting it on YouTube, downloading it from YouTube, and separating it into 2 different versions. One that's just video and one that's just a podcast. Right. And then adding the enhancements and things to both of those. So it's a step saver.
Right, and it's about playing with them, being playful, because it's also new. You don't yet know who in your audience likes information in one format versus another, and if you'll treat it as a playground with all of this gym equipment, you get to swing and slide and use the monkey bars, do all of it. And I'll say for myself, I love the engagement of face-to-face. And here's the irony. What I also know is a lot of the people who are in my programs, they do not want to be tied to a visual medium in front of their computers. So the workshops I do are not done in a format that requires people to sit facing their screen. They're done in a format that allows them to do all audio only, so that as they're driving and they're thinking about business issues, or they're sitting in their office and they're being deliberate with paper in hand, it's their choice. So I'm using technology and then reformatting for how I know my folks want the choice of how to consume the information. And again, if we come back to a platform like Google, it's built into the platform that lets you play with all these different media, and create your content in a fashion that's repurposable in a lot of different formats, again, live and recorded, as part of who you are, how you conduct business, and how you connect with your folks, your prospects, and your actual consumers, your customers, and so on.
Excellent. And thank you so much, Linda Feinholz, breakthroughbydesign.com and Breakthrough Academy. And we're going to come back and shoot the bull with rubber darts, of course. And well, it won't be in a couple minutes. You have to actually go to the Shoot the Bull podcast or audio version. But I'm going to say goodbye to Linda right now, and we'll continue with that. But thank you again. And again, I don't just go on and on like this with everybody, but with Linda, definitely listen to her podcast, subscribe to it, and check it out. It's a high-value, high-profit building activity.
Thanks, all.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for visiting the Big Business Zoo and our speaker series, Increase Your Sales, Network, and Site Rank. And today's feature on business development and podcasting with today's special guest, Linda Feinholz. If you enjoyed what we had to share today, check out the show notes on this page where we have links, references, and a free gift provided by our speaker. A transcript as well as a podcast version of today's episode are also available on the show notes page. Shoot the Bull podcast episodes, due to their candid nature, are available to subscribers only at BigBusinessZoo.com. Subscribing to the podcasts, videos, and articles in this series is a service designed to benefit you in your business, your media efforts, and in designing a lifestyle of joy and excellence. You can also find more videos, articles, resources, and podcasts for this series on BigBusinessZoo.com, DNetTV.com, Podcast Alley, and iTunes. You can connect with our beloved zookeeper, profitability strategist, and marketing maven, Catherine B. Trainer, on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and BigBusinessZoo.com. We make our videos and podcasts as shareable as possible, but please use digital rights respect for the content created here, or you could be banished from the zoo to the circus with the other clowns. This has been a production of Big Business Zoo Media, part of Big Business Zoo LLC, all rights reserved.